Hey guys, Nick back for one last video about Eagle Evade. They just posted patch notes today talking about the patch that's coming on the 17th. We know the animation is getting squashed. We know there's no listed damage boost to compensate. So if we're just getting a straight up major nerf with no damage to boot, fuck it. Like, I'm moving on. I have plans for something else. I know in the previous video I said I might quit the season. That's not entirely true. I'll talk about that in a second. But I went ahead and finished what I said I was going to do. In the last video, I showed you the build planner I made with the three variants, the Shackle, the Perditions, and the No Uniques build. I finished the No Uniques build, threw it together, and gave it a whirl. And yeah, we were able to do a pit 120. Here's some quick footage of that. Now I'm going to talk about a couple things I did. I was experimenting. This was literally just the first 120 that I did. And I put Vortex on a rune word. I had a moment of not really thinking clearly, and I'll explain why in a second. But um, so what I was doing here was the reason I like Vortex. Vortex might still be correct. I don't even really know. I don't know how to gauge Vortex's DPS because the problem is that the thing about Vortex is when the enemies are spread out. Like when you, let's say you first enter a room and the room looks like this, right? When you're going around this room, if there's enemies over here and there's enemies over here and there's enemies over here, your quills are going to be firing in all directions going for those different enemies, which means your DPS is split up in all kinds of ways. Once Vortex starts proccing, as you can see, and it cleans them up a couple times and sucks them up like this, once they're in a center location like this, now like this, look how beautiful this is. All the quills firing on the group, squished up, nice and clean. You're not losing rogue quills to the sides. So Vortex is a strange one because with the way the quills work, it's hard to really gauge how much of a DPS increase this is. But I do think it means something. Like I think it's relevant, right? It's just hard to gauge. It's hard to know how much this is really providing you. But so yeah, we were crushing this pretty well. This was just my first one. I admit something. I don't know if it's on the planner. I will admit that I goofed and I forgot that the 15% knockdown to knock down enemies was only for gorilla skills. So I put that on to be cute with the Vortex because the Vortex is knocking them down. But I realized after the fact, oh yeah, that's only gorilla skills. So that wasn't even actually providing the 15. The fact that it was giving 15% damage in the first place is why I was more comfortable putting it on as a rune word. Remembering now that I'm a chode and it wasn't actually giving me damage. I might change that in the future. I don't know. This first map sucked. I hate the dungeon ones. Pretty linear. One thing you want to do, I'll show you on the boss. I kept fat fingering. I wasn't really paying attention. I was seeing my time and knew I was going to beat it. I couldn't decide if I was going to record a cleaner one once I was just checking the numbers because I literally just finished throwing the build together like 20 minutes ago and started pumping the higher ones. The Masterworks gave me a really hard time overnight. I ended up spending about 3,000 or 4,000 Forgotten Souls. I spent 2,500 Forgotten Souls and I didn't get a single double Masterwork, so I was really, really starting to get a little burned out. But then, by the luck of the draw, the last like 300 gave me like 3 doubles, so we saved it. But man, I was really getting burned out. I could make a montage master cut of. I actually recorded one session of that. I could record it and make a video. I could make a video of that, but. So yeah, things were going well. I was keeping, you can see here, 29 supremacy stacks, which is great. That's just because I'm using Centipede and recasting them on cooldown, so I'm not really losing stacks, keeping it around 28 to 30 constantly. Pretty much recasting most of the stuff off cooldown. Not really casting Armor Hide off cooldown, but if block is truly additive at this point, my block is so high, it's not that big of a DPS scrape. If you were a good player and actually trying to min-max squeeze this, what you would do is, because I have Intricacy on, you would wait to cast this. I think I actually do this right here. Hold on. I think I waited intentionally to cast this because I was watching the Centipede cooldown. I wanted to get it right. Or I just wasn't pressing buttons because I wasn't paying attention. I couldn't tell you. I don't really, like I said. I started glitching a little bit here. So, I was just too focused. What I was doing here, so the reason I'm not paying attention to anything, I'm not even clicking buttons, is I'm looking up at the mini-map. If you'll notice what I'm doing here with Vortex, I'm literally just... I saw the dots because it's Subo or whatever, and I'm going around watching the dots, trying to just group them up with Vortex. So I wasn't even looking at my buttons. I wasn't even like, I was just going around this ring, grabbing all these guys, and then when it was all grouped up, I was like, oh yeah, I should be clicking buttons, huh? But as you can see, the Vortex sucks every time they pop off. It really does start to clean up the pack and really starts to tighten up so that the quills are doing max damage. So again, I really like Vortex for this. I really think it does add some layer of DPS gain to the build as a whole. But yeah, we were cruising. One thing you'd want to do if you're good is oh, here again this happened. See a big circle. You see me up here. I'm looking around with the servo dots. These dots are my biggest enemy because I'm too fixated on them when I'm doing this, working on trying to get the big pack of them. Because I knew if I could get a big clump of these together. See, I love that suck right there, that little circle right there. But I knew if I get these grouped up that this was it. So I was like, well, we'll just push the boss using this. You ideally want to cast Armored Hide right before you cast the ult. That way you're getting the intricacy buff. If the ult is up and Armored Hide isn't up, I very commonly don't wait for it because I don't want to lose supremacy stacks. But that is the dream. The dream is like you wait, you cast Armored Hide, immediately cast your ult. Armor Hide will fade. You get a free cast. You cast it again. And then you probably just sit and wait. You don't cast it. You just wait. And then when you see the ult you're about to cap, you just go 1-2, double tap real quick, and you cast Armor Hide, then you cast your ult. That's the smart way to play, not the turbo, whatever the hell this was, way to play. So fighting the boss, he got pumped pretty quick. I mean, the supremacy stacks are solid. There's definitely room to improve here. I mean, my Masterworks are far from perfect. My gear is far from perfect. I threw this together since last night because I said I would, just to experiment with the all-uniques version and see how I could push. Just in case we got good news, but then we didn't get good news, right? So that was a bummer. But he was fine. Potency kicks in. I only have 3 of potency because I didn't put it on the neck, so that would have been more DPS there, whatever. And then pop goes the weasel. He's done. So all in all, pretty clean. I ended that with what, like 5 minutes left? So tighter play, slightly better gear, 5 minutes to spare. Plenty of room to climb with this build, technically. You could definitely do it if you wanted to, but and again, that was with this version of the build. The only change I made from the version I had posted was on the weapon. I had the Vortex. I actually changed this in the guide. I'm going to change this back to health. That's up for you guys to decide if you want to do that. One other thing I did that I'll fix now last night is I was messing with this. Like you see, it says 37 and not 38. That's because as I was tempering my gear, I was changing this on the fly to account for the rolls I was actually getting so that I knew based on the tempers I was getting whether or not I was going to hit break points because my boot wasn't perfect. I actually bricked an Ami trying to get a good evade roll. The tempers on this are not pleasant. It's only annoying because you need the high rolls. It's not like other classes where if you miss if you miss a temper, who cares? Because you'll just when it comes to damage, like if the damage roll isn't high enough, you're like, oh, okay, I lose a little bit of damage, not a big deal. In this build, that doesn't work. Like, you need the tempers to be a certain range because you need to hit breakpoints in your cooldown. So that part's a little more annoying. Like, there's a lot of variance on this Masterworked one, anywhere from 28 to 38%. So it really needs to be perfect. But anyhow, that's it for Eagle Evade. I think that's the last video I'm going to make in the Eagle Evade series. I don't think you're going to see me playing this because I don't want to work on it anymore knowing they're going to patch it, but more importantly, it's because I have a new build I want to get to work on because the math checks out. The math says the build I'm about to make should be a pumper. It's a new build. No one's doing it. I mentioned I've literally seen no videos on this build. I haven't seen anybody talking about it. Its potential. It fully harnesses every bug we're aware of, and I think maybe that's one thing that is holding builds back is people aren't like focused on the resolve stack to get the interdiction really pumping. They're not, the health. It's like people took the builds we already knew about and they harnessed the bugs in those builds to make those pre-existing builds stronger. But what's interesting about these bugs is if you reverse engineer them, dissect them, and say, I'm going to harness your power and use you to design a new build, it's kind of interesting what you can come up with. That's all I'm going to say. So stay tuned for that. One of two things is going to happen. Either the new build's going to work and you'll see me again in the near future, or the build isn't going to work, and because they're nerfing this, I'll probably see you in Season 7. So thanks for checking out my videos. It was fun to pop in again and say hello to everyone. I miss everybody. Season 0 was obviously fun. It's a different day now. Spiritborn ruined the game, but thanks for popping in, and I'll maybe see you guys again in the near future, or maybe I won't. Time will tell. Until then, goodbye. Have fun.